A river with 100 tributaries is often the most worshipped one, and a business that diversifies with time is often the most successful one. A word of caution though, before you diversify, learn about diversifact and diversification. Hello and welcome to Lessons in Excellence. There is no single route to success. Excellence is about exploring the unexplored and taking the right decisions at the right time, like the decision to diversify.
The Tata Group. With over 80 companies under its umbrella, it accounts for 6% of India's exports. It has believed consistently in one mantra for 124 years: diversification. From steel to IT, tea to automobiles, it has them all. But the driving force behind its growth is its enterprising management, who watch out for diversification and utilize diversifacts.
Mantra, you've created two very lovely words, diversification and diversifact. What's that?
The issue is the following. Look at the last 30 years. Management often falls victims to simple fads. So we had a period when it was stick to your knitting. Peterson, Waterman written the book In Search of Excellence. They said stick to your knitting, stick to your knitting. Don't diversify, don't be on. Then came a period which says diversification. Diversification is the way to create growth opportunities. There were external world things that help, new technologies when they come up and so on. But then we had a period of diversification. Then came core competency. Stick to your core competency.
The same as stick to the knitting.
That to our mind is diversification. These simple rules as if they are true everywhere. The facts of diversification are different societies have different institutional structures. Different companies have different management capabilities, different kinds of abilities, and whether diversification, managing a diversified set of businesses is good or bad depends on who you are, what is your management capability, where are you operating.
Saying that it's going to be case by case all the time. There is no one mantra that companies, when they are on the drawing board and saying, now what do I do? Do I diversify?
There is always a contest between markets and companies. Markets, efficient markets, as economists think about it, operate best when every company is a powerless actor, pure price taker. They are small, they do only one thing, the market dominates, the customer is happy because in that perfect market, no company makes any profit.
That's the theoretical construction.
Okay. But that's the power of the market. The market is a force that will continuously drive to make companies small, focused,
and price takers.
Price takers. Management, on the other hand, wants to control its own destiny. Management wants to grow, to diversify, to become big and powerful, to control markets. Now, as markets become, see what has happened in India. As the markets in India are becoming more sophisticated, better capital markets, more sophisticated labor markets, more efficient product markets, the markets will try to push companies to become smaller, divest all other businesses, and shrink. Companies, on the other hand, if they have the management capacity, they want to grow, diversify. Then it becomes a question. My mantra would be, ask honestly, with authenticity, how good is my management? If you have the management capacity, by all means take the opportunities that come about, diversify, grow, internationalize, do all of those things. That's how great companies are created. Don't be afraid.
Only if you have the management capability.
On the other hand, like many old Indian family businesses that are diversified in the license Raj, that does not have the management capacity, similarly, authentically understand that you don't have it. Cut before the market makes you cut. Cut in time, shrink back to match your business scope with your management capacity.
Okay, Geeta, this is the point at which to bring you in this whole, what legacy are Indian companies living with? Because we see some of the larger Indian companies or houses being extremely diversified. from steel to paper to brands to automobiles. I mean, they are conglomerates, if you can call them that.
They are conglomerates, and there's a historical reason for that. And the historical reason is very simple. You had the MRTP, which ruled India for a good 30-year period. So if you were a monopoly house, you could not do anything else but diversify. You were not given a license to expand. We've got Rahul Bajaj saying that I'd rather go to jail if that's a penalty for expansion.
Sumantra said that the only mantra he has is if you have the management capability and you have all the other things, you have the cash, etc., then go and diversify. Does that mantra work for Indian companies? Is that the one key thing that they now need, or they've got some other situations to grapple with?
No, that is exactly the truth. And if you see companies which are diversifying, let's take Reliance. Reliance has diversified enormously. Wipro has grown in a very different manner, but they're all following the same mantra. And just to take the discussion a little bit more forward, in managing radical change, we talk about what does management capability mean, and it basically means 3 areas. That there are entrepreneurial units. At the same time, there is a lot of horizontal information, and there is a core which has the dreams and the vision.
Wipro, another well-diversified company with over 20 years of IT consulting, systems integration and engineering services. With 27 offices worldwide and revenues of over $700 million, it is glued together by a strong organizational culture and vision. And with strong management capacities, it ensures that its employees adhere to its principles. With free sharing of information at the core of its functioning, it aims to be a cohesive and integrated organization. A contrast from the Indian legacy of decentralized business houses.
We've been talking about how perhaps its legacy, that a lot of Indian business houses are actually just decentralized federations. Now, if they have to convert themselves to what you and Geeta have called, cohesive, integrated networks, how do they do that?
What do you need? Why is the decentralized federation wrong? What are you saying there? You're saying each business completely standalone, they're all part of the group. At some point in an efficient capital market, the capital market will ask, why are they part of the group? If you're adding no value to them, to the rest of your system, they should be spun out. So that's where the pressure comes. At the same time, if you put everything together into one blob, you kill something very important. You kill entrepreneurship in the front line. Business requires entrepreneurship in the front line. So the challenge becomes, how do I create in a diversified company where each entity controls its own destiny? There's a local empowered management team that can pay full attention to that business vis-a-vis other competitors and have the freedom to act operationally, strategically. That's old ugly word, synergy if you wish. Same time, I know I need to continuously renew. How do I ensure that within the total there is this energy, the capacity to continuously challenge our vision? What are we going towards? A set of values that act as a glue holding it together. You need all of those things.
Now, there is a fear that if you have too many, as you've said very often, and your writings seem to suggest also, that it's the disaggregated unit, it's the frontline units which need to be empowered, which need to throw up the entrepreneurial impulse through the organization. Isn't there a fear of actually breaking up corporate initiative into too many small units?
You see, in the past, our problem was the only way we could integrate was vertically. So I say, okay, I want your business and Geeta's business to work together. The way I'll do that is say, both of you will report to a common boss. Now, that then takes away your entrepreneurship, creates layers, creates hierarchy, creates bureaucracy. That's what we build. I think the big change that is going on, how do I make entrepreneurship coexist with integration, is a switch from this hierarchical mode of integration to a horizontal mode of integration. I'll give you an example.
In BP, it was integration at its best. And it all started during the reign of John Brown. He fragmented BP into 150 different business units. And it worked. Each business had autonomy with a yearly review by the top management. But that was not all. BP exists as an integrated company through a unique mechanism: peer groups.
The peer group, managers who are managing the same kind of business with this full frontline accountability, they are put together as a peer group. So all the gas fields are a peer group, all the major refineries are a peer group, all the marketing units are a peer group. And the peer group is the most important way BP is managed. It started off as peer assist, that says each member of the peer group is responsible to help each other.
I think the sharing of information. So you created these disaggregated autonomous units. Now, two questions there. One, of course, you've just highlighted, which is the sharing of information. That needs to be seamless. It needs to flow. The second, of course, is also resources. I mean, aren't the resources of a group best handled, not handled, but best sort of coalesced centrally, rather than having so many people?
I'll tell you what BP does. Exactly to this. BP's process of peer group started with peer assist. Peer assist is more than sharing information. Peer assist is taking personal responsibility to improve the performance of others. That's more than just information. From peer assist, they went to peer challenge. What does peer challenge say? It said, okay, we are in the peer group. I will do my performance contracting with top management. Now, before I do that, I have to first get my performance contract agreed to within the peer group.
But will that unit get its own resources?
Now what happens is, we are all sitting together. We are peer group members, right? You say, I want 20 million pounds for investment. I say, I want 60 million. She says, she wants 30 million. Now, the bonus for each one of us, 50% is the performance of my business, 50% is the performance of the peer group. So, if you invest 20 million, cannot produce the returns, return on capital employment, debts, not only do you suffer, we all suffer. So you all now sit together, realize who we are. We know the business very well. I may have been doing your job before I moved to mine and you took over. We really know the business. We sit down and we say, okay, is this 20 million safe? The nature of conversation that it generates, that conversation, is very different from the one you would have had if you sat down with the 20 million request with your boss.
From jet engines to power generation, medical equipment to plastics, diversification has been a way of life at GE for 124 years. With global assets worth $500 billion, GE is an example of a company that believes in autonomy and free sharing of information. Every employee has a stake in the success and failure of GE. Closer home, can Indian companies emulate GE?
And can this sort of work in India? We've had groups like, say, the Tatas, which have got a lot of, let's say, about 80 companies, which have got a lot of disaggregated units. But does this kind of disaggregated entrepreneurship with peer groups being monitoring and resource allocating units, and there being the central framework which welds it all together, but yet leaves entrepreneurship intact at the disaggregated unit, does it work?
I don't see it. I really don't see it.
Can it work? Should it work?
Of course, I think it should work because it leads for an extremely strong group.
Then what's holding it back in corporate India?
Perhaps our Indian tendency not to share information. I think we're very feudal in our attitude. Information is valuable. You must hoard it. If you give it out, maybe you become less powerful.
I must say I disagree with her. I think she's being too pessimistic. I'll give you an example. I think the progress Aditya Birla Group has made in building this kind of an organization.
From mutual funds to insurance, from consumer and corporate finance to a beautiful dream called life. Aditya Birla Group, the brighter side of life.
Progress the group has made in a short 4-year period is amazing. In terms of protecting the autonomy of the units, in terms of creating more exchanges, more sharing, the sharing of best practices, the skill transfers, in terms of creating a
hub and spoke model. It's not an integrated network model.
All right. So now we are getting into two very interesting phrases. The hub and spoke, you're saying, is happening in India, but the integrated is not. What's the difference? What's the key difference?
As Sumanta said earlier, in a hub and spoke, you have autonomous units, but they're all reporting to the top. And it's almost, if you want to really break down the analogy, it's like the functions of a department.
I want to come in here and disagree with her again.
Wonderful.
Aditya Birla Group has this awards, Aditya Birla Awards, right? If you look what the awards are, the Koreans did this. They used to have a thing called Skill Olympics. LG Group, Samsung, they used to have Skill Olympics, which is different businesses, they will do something well, and they will be identified. Then there will be Skill Olympics regionally, the best teams all will come together, Skill Olympics. It was the most powerful means of transferring best practices, because everybody else is watching everybody else's best practices. I see the Aditya Birla Awards as exactly taking that, applying that, very different businesses, the things they are doing well, they will highlight, they will be selected group by group. Ultimately somebody will get the overall award, others will get sub-awards, but as a means of horizontal, this is completely horizontal. I think it's a very powerful means. I believe this A can happen, B is happening, and I think the sooner Indian managers realize this is not something that happens in BP or in Samsung, it happens in Aditya Birla Group, the sooner they will start saying, we will do it ourselves.
Hold on.
Yes.
There are two more examples which superficially substantiate what Sumanta is saying. You've got Infosys, which has a system by which you have peer presentations.
But Infosys is not a very diversified company, is it?
It's not a diversified company, but we're talking about autonomy of units, a manager feeling that I can do what I want and I can grow the unit as I want.
Okay.
All right, so you have your, Infosys has its software development centers and so many other areas. So you had these peer presentations. First they created this amazing portal where everybody put up their experiences, nobody looked at the portal. And then they said, okay, this is not working, we need to get peer-to-peer information and knowledge sharing, and they have these little presentations and they're well attended, so knowledge is being shared horizontally. Similarly in Hindustan Lever you have lots of training, and you have lots of peer presentations, but I still say that the kind of the conversation, the depth of the conversation, the skin in the game which is required, India has not moved towards that.
And that's, you're saying, more a cultural matter?
So far. Now one hopes that it would change.
Okay.
You know, what's the one thing? I'll tell you a story. There's one CEO I really admire, John Neal. John Neal is the CEO of Unipart. I asked one of the employees of Unipart, in auto industry it happens very rarely, somebody, a woman, high school dropout who joined as a typist, becoming a senior product manager. So I asked her, what does John do? I'm hanging around this company now for a few days trying to write a case. I don't see what John does. What does John do? What does Davis does? She told me the story, which I liked. She said, you know, I come from this very small village in Scotland. We just have one little street, few houses around. In the middle of that street stands a little church. If you ask, what does a church do? And you walk every day, all you'll find is all week it stands empty. Sunday morning a few people turn up, they sing some songs and go away. There's nothing else. But if you looked at the lives of each individual in the village, the very existence of the church affects each husband's relationship with the wife, each child's relationship with the parent, everybody's behavior is affected. That's what above all a center does. It creates the vision, it creates the values. Geeta talked about the trust, the openness. It provides the spiritual basis. I hate to use the word spiritual, but that's what it is.
Now,
that's what it provides.
Now, just to wrap this discussion up then, Geeta of course is still saying that Indian companies or Indian groups which are trying to move towards becoming truly integrated companies, integrated networks, they are still sort of caught in the hub and spoke approach. How do you make the hub the church, if you were, of that village?
I think first, top management, the CEO on that group needs to recognize at the apex level I would say even more than vision, values. I think one problem because of the history of Indian companies is the values aren't right. Not because people are corrupt or anything, but the environment was such. I think the most important starting point would be a real push to create a set of values. I think this is what Wipro did extremely well. What Azim did before any vision, Azim created the values and has stuck to those values. I think Infosys has done that very well. You said Infosys is not diversified. I think it's very diversified because of its different customer groups. I think create the values, create the vision, step one. Then create the processes, primarily around financial accounting, common, people processes, common people development processes, succession processes. So it is values and vision, and then a common set of processes as the glue that holds the rest together and creates a platform for the horizontal sharing to start. If you are starting with the US market, the size of the US market is such that even a small presence there may need certain investments. On the other hand, if you're starting in Thailand or in Dubai, your initial investment may be much smaller. But absolutely, go sequentially in terms of spreading your geographic scope. If you try to enter 20 markets in the same year, you'll make a hatch of all of them. Prioritize based on a strategic understanding of the market and your capability to serve the demands of the market.
Overcoming Indianness when you're talking of the external business. Let's talk about overcoming Indianness within India. Going global doesn't mean just outside India, but are you world class within India?